Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother has went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
What's your, is it deemed?
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hello. Thank you all for being here. This is another ATS News live stream. We are going over the Karen Read trial. So there's a lot going on, a lot to recap, just some stuff I want to share. Some of it will be from Court TV segment today. Another thing will be shared from a Boston news station. So we'll kind of get some of the locals' opinions and then just some clips I've put together. So let me just start off with asking chat if the audio is good before I continue. I don't have any mods in here just yet. So if chat could just let me know. And hello, EE Caroline, Mac J, Mike, Zoe, Sherry's here, Tony, Melly, good to see you. Planet's here. OCD is here. Christina, Globa, good to see you guys. So we go down audio before I get started. Thanks, guys. Okay, got the thumbs up. Alrighty, thank you, Princess Mega Elsa, for being here. For those who have joined, please hit the like button, and I'll just start playing a compilation of just some clips related to the case, just to give a little recap for those who aren't familiar with it, or just to have a little bit of background for stuff.
Read and her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, were bar hopping on a snowy night in Massachusetts. At the end of the night, they were invited to a house party at the home of a fellow officer in Canton, Massachusetts. When Karen and John arrived, Karen did not exit the car. John did. From that point forward, there are 2 very different versions of what happened. Prosecutors say Karen was mad at John and purposely struck him with her car and left him on the ground to die in the snow. But Karen and her defense team say John went to the party. Something terrible happened inside the house, and his body was placed outside, where he was found dead the next morning. Karen has been charged with murder, but claims she is the victim of a big cover-up by police. The battle inside the courtroom and outside the courthouse has been intense. Prosecutors insisting Karen Read is a murderer, while she insists it was someone inside the house that night who is responsible for what happened to her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Tonight, we look at the key pieces of evidence that may prove murder or cover-up as we investigate the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe.
So this is the footage from the bar that evening. It is slowed down so that we can kind of see it, not in real time, just to kind of get a better look at their, facial expressions and body language. So Mike says cover up 100%.
So I pull at the foot of the driveway. It's snowing. John has no coat on. It's windy. So I drop him off. He goes up the driveway and approaches the side door. And as I see him approach the door, I look down at my phone.
Reed says after about 10 minutes of waiting in her car, she became irritated that O'Keefe still hadn't gotten in touch with her. And she drove back to his home, where she continued calling him before, she says, she fell asleep around 1:30 in the morning.
This is the morning that John O'Keefe's body was found on this yard, and you can see the snow conditions. Now, it snowed overnight. I don't think there was this much snow when Karen Read was dropping him off because it really hadn't started yet. But this is the level of snow cover that we're talking about when.
Okay, so I want to pause it right here to look at this view and get your guys' input on something that's just been going around in my head. So he is found right near the flagpole, near that bush that's there. You know, they theorize that she dropped him off and then she drove 60 feet and then reversed it at 24 miles an hour and hit him. My thing is, why is he so far away from the driveway and even the front door? If she had dropped him off and that's where she hit him, why is he so far over from the house? That's where I'm getting like very confused on. Now, that's the Commonwealth's theory. I'm still undecided. Although now that things have been going on and progressing in court, I feel like the state, Commonwealth, whichever you want to call it, has not met their burden of anything at this point. No proof, I haven't seen any theory really laid out. The only thing that they've really stated was people, who have testified so far have said he was not in the house over and over. That's what we're hearing. I know on SafeBot that they're not claiming she hit him near the driveway. I'm just saying if he was dropped off by her, why would he be all the way over there for her to hit him? Like, why would he have walked all the way over in that? Like, why would he be standing in that area for her to reverse it and hit him there? Does that make sense? Like what I'm asking? I'm not really seeing the whole scenario. Like you would think if she dropped him off and she was mad, this and that it would have happened kind of more in front of the house, more like near the driveway where she dropped him off. That's what they keep saying. She dropped him off and then she, went forward and then reversed it and hit him. So if that's their theory, I'm curious why they come up with the idea that, like, what did he do? Walk after the vehicle? Like why would he be standing in that area for her to have hit him? And I still go back to this whole, like, why would she, hit him? And knowing that there's a house full of cops, a house full of people that were expecting them to show up, people inside the house, including Jennifer McCabe, who's texting him, like, here, are you here type of conversations and texts. So why would she risk it knowing that there's all these cops inside and people inside expecting them? And people were still being dropped off around that time that her car was seen out there, allegedly, because people have testified thus far, like, yes, I saw her vehicle. I saw the dome light on and a woman behind the steering wheel with her hands at 10 and 2. So all these testimonies taking place. What would make her risk, being caught hitting him, no matter how mad she is and, quote unquote drunk she is, like they're claiming? To me, it's just not making sense. It's just really the Commonwealth theory. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I told you guys when we started this on my channel that I'm walking into this with an unbiased opinion. Just want to see what they have to say in court. Now it's been a few weeks and I just am not understanding the theory that Commonwealth is trying to paint. Yeah, exactly. How does it hit his head with the taillight? And that brings up a good point too, Mike, that I wanted to say. We have all these stuff that we've gone through previously about what he was wearing. He's got one shoe on. Where is his hat? Because as we've seen just now in that CCTV footage earlier that I was showing you guys, he's wearing a hat. So where is that hat in all this? Did I miss them describe where the hat was found? Help me out there, guys. Yeah, it's not making any sense because it's not true. Right, Valerie, the belt is missing too. So where is his belt? Where is the other shoe? And where is his hat? I haven't heard anyone say anything. Tony says, I don't think she is guilty, in my opinion. At this point, Commonwealth has not shown me anything that's showing that she's guilty. So I'm there with you, think there were chew marks on the belt and they got rid of it. Interesting theory. Belt, shoe, and hat are all missing. And how does that happen? If you're struck by a vehicle, you know, like there's no reason why, you know, we've gone through this before. Like, yes, people's shoes fly off. Actually, people's pants even like fall down a little bit, depending on how hard and all that. So where is the hat? They're using a leaf blower, finding pieces of the glass, the cocktail glass, but yet we haven't heard them say like, and the hat was found here underneath the snow. It's just weird. Yeah. And like Melly said, where is all this blood? They said something about he had lost 3 pints or something like that. Is that right, guys? I'm just not seeing it. Oh my gosh. Caroline. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that, but I was like, I don't want to offend people by saying like, these people just seem like alcoholics, but everything that they've just been testifying, I'm like, they're at the, I don't know, it's such a snowy night and all that stuff going on, and they're all drinking and, oh, come over to our house for an after party, all this stuff. I'm like, a bunch of alcoholics. I don't know. It's just very weird. She says, I figure these are all career drunks, functional, but lifers. Their whole life revolves around bars and drinking. Yeah. They show this in their testimony. They don't even notice it, but I do. Yes. I'm picking down exactly what I'm picking up what you're putting down. All right, let's continue on with this little recap.
John O'Keefe's body was found and discovered early in the morning. You could see the police arriving there as well. Details about John O'Keefe's body. He was wearing 2 shirts, jeans, and had 1 sneaker on. Approximately 6 inches of snow covering him. Again, it snowed overnight, so he had to be on the ground for a while. He's located on the left side of the yard, about 8 feet from the street. He's found lying on his back, bleeding from his face and nose, surrounded by drops of blood and shards of glass. Have some more photos for you. Warning, blood spatter. This is on the snow. Blood spatter on the snow on the yard.
I'm pausing it just to kind of get a little look at it. So this looks like blood droplets that are falling directly down. Of course, I'm not an expert, but if he was hit, I just find all this blood spatter, the pattern of it interesting.
The one problem I have with that is, did it snow? How much snow was there at the time he was struck and on the ground? And is the blood on top of the snow? Is it underneath? I think that's important, but I'm not an expert. I'm just a lawyer.
It feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
Spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
Here's Karen Read's defense attorney showing another piece of evidence that they uncovered. Take a look.
The taillight was intact when she left Brian Albert's house. She came home, and this was Karen leaving to begin the frantic search for John O'Keefe. Now, I don't know that you can see it from the video that you have there, but there is no doubt that when that SUV comes into contact with what is John O'Keefe's vehicle parked in the driveway, you can see that rear tire move forward. It rotates, and you also see the light shatter from the taillight being broken.
On January 31st, Dr. Irini Scortibello from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner conducted the autopsy of Mr. O'Keefe. The doctor advised the troopers that she observed several abrasions to the victim's right forearm, 2 swollen black eyes, a small cut above the right eye, a cut to the left side of the nose, an approximately 2-inch laceration to the back right of his head, and multiple skull fractures that resulted in bleeding of the brain. Dr. Scortibello further advised the troopers that the victim's pancreas was a dark red color indicating hypothermia, was a contributing factor to his death. Dr. Scortibello opined from her examination that the significant blunt force trauma injuries occurred prior to Mr. O'Keefe becoming hypothermic, as evidenced by hemorrhaging in his pancreas and stomach. Mr. O'Keefe had arrived at the Good Samaritan Medical Center with a body temperature reading in the low 80s. The doctor opined that the extensive injuries to his head likely rendered Mr. O'Keefe incapacitated.
People of lying about what they heard, the conspiracy allegation has to get larger and larger. Let me put it on the screen, Joseph. In the Commonwealth statement of the case, they say this, that Ms. Roberts stated that she believed the defendant was still intoxicated in the morning and had told her that she did not remember last night. Ms. Roberts reported the defendant as stating to her, quote, "I was so drunk, I don't even remember going to your sister's last night," referring to Ms. McCabe's sister, the homeowner of 34 Fairview Road.
Why is Jennifer McCabe one of the parties that was inside the house that night, the sister-in-law of Brian Albert? Why was she Google searching? How long does it take for a human body to die in the cold? The Apple Cocoa core data indicates, or the core time indicates exactly what time that Google search occurred. That time was at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning on January 29th. That's 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found.
How long to die in cold? Is this the smoking gun? Is this the smoking Google?
All right, so those were just some clips collected, kind of do a recap. I did want to touch on what Valerie was saying from Jen McCabe's testimony. Said something about Karen asked in the midst of all the chaos and discovery of the body if she got her period. Now, I remember that, and I remember watching her testimony live. And it was right before she started talking about how then Karen asked her to Google about hypothermia and how long it takes for someone to die out in the cold. So my theory is, because it was such a strange comment. Now, we don't know if Karen even really said it. But I'm wondering if she stated it on the stand, knowing that she was going to have to say her side of the Google search coming up. So she said something so like outrageous and outlandish and just like weird that the jury would be distracted by that comment before she got to explaining the Google search, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's making any sense, but I just thought it was so random in her. It was almost said in a run-on sentence too. Like she like said that and then she worked up to the Google search. It was just very weird. So I'm not going to play this whole segment. I just want to play the part where they're kind of showing who's connected to who and all that. And then was that her Google searches. Jen McCabe, the woman right here on the top left with the blue, they found on her phone, which was deleted. That's the other thing too. It wasn't just a search, like Karen, she claims Karen asked her, look it up. How long till you die in the cold? And she's like, I have MS, so I typed it out wrong. That was deleted from her phone. And then from my understanding and reading like the data poll, she re-Googled it like later that day. So there's a spot at 2:30 in the morning that she Googled that, and then in the morning hours, she Googled it again. So my theory is she Googled it at 2 something in the morning for nefarious, sketchy reasons. I mean, the Celebrite says the time, the date right on, or the time, yeah, right on there. And then it says deleted. And then later that morning, she Googles the same thing again. And it has a different timestamp. And that is not deleted. So I've got the exact time right here. 2:27. How long to die in cold? Celebrite, the program used to pull phone data, says deleted. Then at 6:23 in the morning, she spells it correctly. How long till die in cold? Still kind of spelled a little bit wrong, but not the same spelling. That was not deleted. So again, it shows up on there twice. One time, 2:30 in the morning, deleted. 2:27, deleted. Right. Why delete it if she did it for Karen? Right. Well, the one that she did for Karen, allegedly, I'm assuming, is the 6:23 one. And how interesting that Karen would ask that question when you had already searched it at 2:27 in the morning. And the other thing that I didn't understand about Karen supposedly asking that question was there were paramedics and first responders and cops on the scene. Surely if you had some sort of question like that, you could have asked them, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a good point, Valerie. Can't claim it as one search if there are 2 different spellings. Yep. And there is. They're completely spelled differently. And like I said, one of them shows the 2:27 one was deleted. All righty. So let me just play the who's who. This is from today. And then we'll go into another little trial recap because there was a lot. There was a lot discussed last week, a lot to kind of wrap our brains around. Tomorrow is a big day. Tomorrow is cross-examination of Jen McCabe, who did those Google searches. So we're going to watch a little bit of this, get the whole format of who belongs to who, where all these people are connected, because I think that's important to kind of reiterate. And then we'll go into some opinions based on this local NBC 10 Boston channel, and they did their own little like recap tonight.
Here, you're talking about the state and local police, the Alberts, and the McCabes. So it's important to understand how everyone knows each other. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of this just so you have a better, because it gets very confusing very quickly, right? Very confusing. My job is to cover this story, right? Is to understand the story, and you got to keep studying it. So let's walk through that. Let's start with John O'Keefe, the victim in all of this. He is friends with Jennifer McCabe because his niece, who he is raising, and Jen's daughter are friends. So there's a connection between John O'Keefe and Jennifer McCabe, and they were communicating that night via text, and they saw each other at the bar. Jennifer McCabe and Matthew McCabe are husband and wife. They are married. And Jennifer and Matthew McCabe have a daughter named Allison McCabe, also known as Allie. She testified. You saw her on the witness stand. She's an important figure in all of this as well, according to the defense theory here. Now, where are we? Jennifer McCabe's sister is Nicole Albert, okay? Again, the McCabes and the Alberts. Nicole Albert is married to Brian Albert. They're the ones who own the home. Brian is the Boston police officer. Knew John O'Keefe sort of, but wasn't close to him. Somebody else in his family actually was closer. Their children are Brian Jr. It was his birthday that They were celebrating in the house before the adults came home, even though he's an adult at this point. And Caitlin Albert is their daughter. Brian Albert Sr.'s brother is Chris Albert. Okay, Chris Albert has testified as well. Chris is married to Julie Albert, and they were not at the party. They were at the bar that night, but they didn't go back to the house. But somebody in their family was apparently at the house, their son, Colin Albert. Okay? Colin Albert, you saw his testimony. The defense is pointing the finger at him and his cut up knuckles. Now, Colin is friends with Allie McCabe, and she is the one who drove him home from the Alberts' home. And we saw those text messages. 12:10 was apparently the time that she showed up to pick up Colin. So you see how important Allison McCabe is for Colin Albert in this case. And you see their connection. They're friends and they're like cousins. Their cousins are cousins. So they're sort of related, but not directly. Now, Colin's mom, Julie Albert's best friend is Courtney Proctor. Okay, Courtney Proctor. Courtney Proctor's brother, not her husband, but her brother is Trooper Michael Proctor. Okay, so you see where this is, the connections are. Colin Albert's mom, best friend, is the sister of Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor led the investigation into John O'Keefe's death. He is a trooper with the Massachusetts State Police. So there you have the connections. There'll be a test at the end of the program.
I love how Vinny says there'll be a test at the end of the program. So yeah, unsafe bot, I totally, yep, I heard them explain all that. They aren't claiming the search with the spellings didn't happen. They are saying the timestamp is wrong because of the tab she had opened at 2:27 a.m. and the way the phone stores the file tech talk. Yeah. Basically, she had a tab open at 2:27 a.m. and at 6 something, she used that tab to make the search. So it stored it at the same time the tab was open. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. See, I just don't believe it because the way that Celebrate has pulled it up, like the sheet that they showed in court, it shows 2 separate searches. So if she had that tab open at 2:27 a.m., why would it have, there's just, I think I need to show you guys, but I mean, just like the agent said in the Watts case, people lie, cell phones don't. So I just feel like, I know that that's their theory and they're sticking by it, the Commonwealth, but I just don't see any other case where it's been like, oh yeah, the tab was open, so that must be why. It's just, it is what it is. When you search something in your tab and then it, you know, if that was a tab that was open at 2:27 in the morning and then she reopened that same tab at 6 something in the morning and used that, why would it say that the 2:27 one was deleted? I don't know. I'd like to hear a little bit more from the expert, I guess, on the Celebrate, but it's just not really making sense to me. Now, I do want to share this little clip that everyone kind of was like, she said, you know, that John, well, I'll just play it and you guys let me know your thoughts on it.
At the house, so he's being harassed he was not at the house when John was there, so I drove him home. So people are harassing him saying he was at the house when it's not true.
So she's saying that the harassment has taken place, but he wasn't at the house. I believe she's talking about Colin at this point. Is she talking about Colin, Valerie? He wasn't at the house when John was there. So everyone's like, oh, she just said that John was at the house. Now remember, everyone thus far has said, no, John was never at the house. We never saw him in there. And then she gets up on the stand, says this, and everyone's like, what? Okay, yes, it was Colin. So she's saying he's being harassed Let me play it again.
When you speak about harassment, what specifically type of harassment?
Phone call, constant phone calls, emails, awful messages.
As far as you and your family, what, if any, type of harassment have you received?
People showing up at our house, people emailing my school. Just like a lot of harassment. Can I have a moment, please? Sure. Colin wasn't at the house, so he's being harassed for. He was not at the house when John was there, so I drove him home.
And then, you know, she just breaks down in tears. Oh, can I have a minute to the judge? Some people thought that was over dramatic, just kind of drawing attention away from the fact that, you know, she might have just slipped up there and said that John was at the house. So hold on, let me pull up. I just posted it, so I'll be able to pull it up so you guys can see the Celebrate report. This is the actual report. Can you guys see it? I just posted it. I do believe that they were harassed too, but I feel like I'm not sure that that's where her tears and stuff were coming from. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what she broke down about. But still, I thought that was interesting. Yeah, when John was there. Thought John never was there. All right, so here, 227, housed long to dying cold, deleted. So if she was using the same tab, whatever was in that tab should be here. And then deleted, and then she researched something. How long to dying cold? Not deleted. That's how I see it. Of course, I'm not a tech expert. But I don't know. What are you guys thinking? Are you aligning not relying the blind reliance upon this Celebrate software by people who cannot explain how it works? Cops get conned all the time on technology. Yeah, I think that they're having a Celebrate guy go testify. If they haven't already, I might have missed it. Hello, Roxanne and everyone else. So I don't know if I'm like buying this whole like, oh yeah, they had, you know, Safari is the internet source, the tab. I just feel like this is exactly what it says. 227, she searched this and then she deleted it. And then later she pulls up another Safari tab and searched it again, spells it completely differently. And then actually a minute later, she spells it again. And neither of these ones were deleted. So say she, you know, wanted to retype something in the tab, then why doesn't this one say deleted like this one does when she types the 624 one? I don't know. Again, I don't know. I can't say 100% on anything in this case. I just know that I'm not feeling like the Commonwealth has met the burden of proof yet. And it's been how many weeks? Like, we don't even have their theory of how this murder took place. Okay, so this is a Boston station. Some people are going to share their thoughts who are from the area. So I thought it was interesting. So let's watch this together, guys.
News worthy of you.
Week 4 of testimony in the Karen Read murder trial begins tomorrow when a key witness returns to the stand. Thanks for joining us on Canton Confidential, everyone. I'm JC Monahan. Glenn Jones has the night off. There is a lot to review in this case, and we have been able to get Monica Medea to join us now to go over what has happened in the 3 weeks so far in the Karen Read murder trial. Monica?
JC, there's been so much testimony in those 3 weeks, so let's get you up to speed on where we're at. It's been more than 2 years since John O'Keefe's body was found, and after hearing testimony from a few dozen witnesses at this point, there are still a lot of questions that haven't been answered. After 3 weeks of testimony, the question remains, what happened the night John O'Keefe died? Here's what we do know. On the morning of January 29th, 2022, Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found outside the Canton home of fellow Boston police officer Brian Albert. This was during a blizzard. He later died at the hospital. An investigation led to O'Keefe's girlfriend, Karen Read. She was charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating under the influence of alcohol, and leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Her trial is being held at the Norfolk Superior Court in Dedham. Now let's take a look at the arguments so far. The prosecution says that after a night out drinking at several Canton bars, Read dropped O'Keefe off at a party at the Alberts' home. This was around midnight as snow began to fall. They say Read hit O'Keefe before driving away and returned hours later to find his body in a snowbank. Karen Read's defense says police are framing her.
From all of those people within that house that evening, none of them at any point in time observed John O'Keefe come into the house.
You will question the veracity of the Commonwealth's witnesses, and you will question their shoddy and biased investigation.
Let's look back at key moments in the trial so far. Week 1 began with first responders to 34 Fairview Road the morning John was found. Dashcam footage of that day shows them arriving on scene and trying to resuscitate O'Keefe. Testimony from Canton police officers, firefighters, and paramedics.
I agree, Tony. And like Melly said, like it was just over dramatic. And interesting that she, of course, you could argue like, well, they've been harassed. That's why she's so upset. It's just hard. It's hard to know like what's going on in their heads, but it did seem like she might have said too much. And hello, Linda. Good to see you.
Included differing accounts over one key phrase.
You indicated in both instances that the defendant said to you, I hit him repeatedly, correct?
Correct. At no point in time did you ever hear her say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, correct?
Correct. All I recall her saying was, is he alive?
She said, I hit him. She repeated it.
The defense spent much of the first week drilling the specifics of the police investigation. Their line of questioning focused on the relationships between investigators and the people who were inside the Albert home that night. Week 2 of testimony continued with evidence collection and Canton connections. Police explained how a leaf blower was used to uncover a broken cocktail glass under the snow near where O'Keefe's body was found. Red Solo cups borrowed from a neighbor were used to hold evidence, which was then stored in a Stop and Shop grocery bag.
We decided on finding some type of temporary plastic evidence container.
Week 2 was also our first time hearing from the Albert family, including homeowner Brian Albert.
John O'Keefe and Karen Read never entered my house.
His wife, brother, and sister-in-law testifying about their night out in Canton with John O'Keefe and Karen Read. The group met up at a bar and grill before going back to the Alberts' home. But so far, everyone on the stand testified John O'Keefe never showed up inside that home. Week 3, prosecutors brought us back to Fairview Road with witnesses who said they were inside the home that night. Brian Albert Jr. was the first witness to say he saw Karen Read's SUV in front of the house. One of his friends with him that night claims she saw something on the front lawn as they were leaving, but didn't know what it was.
I did notice behind Sarah and Jen, I did notice something out of the ordinary, like a black blob.
I didn't believe that at all. Again, all these people are leaving the party, getting picked up. No one sees John laying out there. And then the one person who says, I saw something out of the normal, a black blob. There's a bush right there. Is that what you saw? I just wasn't really buying this whole Black Bob. And hello, Bean, Bio Girl, and Dustin. Good to see you guys. Right, and she was wasted. Everyone's drunk. So not only do we have eyewitness statements that we all know are just not really that reliable, but we have drunk eyewitness statements.
In the grounds by the flagpole.
Week 3 also introduced more players, including Colin Albert. He says he was at the Albert home briefly, but he never saw John O'Keefe that night.
At any point in time, did you see John O'Keefe at that house, come into that house, around that house, at any point in time that you were there?
Never.
Week 3 ended with the prosecution calling Jennifer McCabe. She was one of 2 women with Karen Read early that morning who went searching for O'Keefe. Jennifer McCabe returns to the stand tomorrow morning.
Now, you may recall that Jennifer McCabe is the person who Google searched on her cell phone how long to die in the cold. She testified that Read asked her to Google that after John was found, but it is the time that she Googled it that really could get called into question by the defense. We're going to have to wait until tomorrow when the defense gets a chance to question her. JC?
Monica, thank you for that recap. Our Kirsten Glavin has been following the trial since the beginning.
So it's going to be super interesting tomorrow to see the cross-examination of Jennifer McCabe. She's going to be asked about that Google search. I'm curious, for those who saw Jen McCabe testify, did you find her credible? I feel like she was an actress personally, for the most part. I thought that she just kept emphasizing Karen was just screaming and screaming, running around screaming. I hit him. Did I hit him? Like it was just overselling that whole phrase. Did I hit him and I hit him stuff. I don't know. I don't know if I can trust Jen McCabe. Yeah, good God, this whole case is a sham. Karen was drunk. Everyone was drunk, thinking whoever was least drunk might have a grasp, right? And yet I have no idea what happened to Officer John O'Keefe. And that is really upsetting. And the state has done a really bad job, Commonwealth, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, she was over dramatic. I agree. This far in, like, what picture are they trying to paint? Besides just emphasizing to all of us, like, see, they didn't see John in the house. See, this person didn't see John in the house. See, this person heard Karen say, did I hit him? And this person said they heard Karen say that. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. But what are you trying to say happened?
She's joining us live from Canton tonight. Kirsten, we know you had an opportunity to speak to people in and around town about the case. What are you hearing?
Well, a majority of people that we spoke with said that they knew about the trial, but many were also nervous to speak about it publicly because this has been so divisive. It's a town divided. Those living in Canton thrust into the spotlight as the Karen Read murder trial continues at Norfolk Superior Court.
It's been weird. It's been very odd. You go to your local hairdressers, people have opinions, a lot of opinions, and people are divided.
While many have their opinions about the case, many are also hesitant to say them out loud because, as they tell it, it's a small town.
It's not where you would expect to find a case like this. And I don't even get into discussing it because I think it could get very personal.
Some Canton residents still skeptical of what happened the night before John O'Keefe's body was found in the snow back in January of 2022. Read's defense team has continuously claimed it's a law enforcement cover-up.
It's sad. It's really sad. And when you think maybe the police department may have been, wrong in what they did too, because I do like the police officers here.
Others from Canton still aren't buying it.
Her lawyers are making a pretty good case, but guess what? She's involved with it. She's guilty.
But as the trial continues, many remain steadfast in their opinions, one way or another.
My opinion has not changed since the trial. It's kind of strengthened some of my views about things just not being quite right.
Another issue now at hand, the pace of the trial. with some wondering, is it moving too slowly?
Someday next week, I might ask you to think about maybe revising some of these Tuesday, Thursdays to longer days.
Last week, Judge Beverly Cannoni telling jurors she's considering turning half days of court into full days to help speed things up.
I know Judge Cannoni has been very concerned about the length of the trial, mostly trying to be sensitive to the jurors who are really giving up, putting their entire lives on hold.
Law experts like criminal defense attorney Peter Ellikin says the goal for both the defense and prosecution is to move things forward as quickly as possible without rushing the process unfairly.
Prosecutors are always concerned, too, that they don't want to lose the jury. They don't want to bore the jury or drag things out unnecessarily. They want things to go, as quickly as they can. But
And I'm not going to lie, as interesting as this case and trial is, whenever the Commonwealth is examining somebody on the stand, I start like drifting off into like a nap. He's very boring. I don't know where he's getting at with his questions. I wonder if the jury is feeling the same way. And also these half days, I think, it's good that the judge is considering extending them, because it's like, we don't know, where is this going? The jury is probably like, what is going on? We are almost at a month.
But it's got to be effective, too.
Now, Elkin also says that so far, everything appears to be on track from what was projected, but that it is still a little too soon to say if this trial may go longer than those expected 4 to 6 weeks.
Kirsten, was there anyone that you approached today that said they didn't know about this trial, and that the ones that you did talk to that did know about it, did you get a sense, I know not all of them want to go on camera, but did you get a sense if this is weighted one way or another when it comes to guilt or innocence?
Well, almost everyone that we spoke with definitely knew about this trial, and I can tell you a majority of those people did tell us off camera and some on camera that they don't think Karen Read was responsible for what happened. And I can also say that coincides with what we've seen from the town of Canton so far. I did cover back in November, we saw the town vote to audit their police department because of this case. So that does definitely line up with what we've been seeing. But I also think it's important to note that there are very passionate opinions on both sides of the aisle here.
Definitely on both sides. Kirsten, thank you. There is a lot to follow in this trial, and our website is the best tool to keep track of what's going on. If you head to NBC10Boston.com, click on the Karen Read tab, and there you'll see all of our nightly recaps. You can get details on where to find the. We just heard Monica talk about some of the key moments over the last 3 weeks. This is the prosecution's time. They are putting on their witnesses to prove their case. In these 3 weeks, what, Michael, have you seen to support their case?
Not enough. I think in 3 weeks' time, we should have seen a lot more. But what we have seen is some significant things that unfortunately may have been lost along the way. The testimony right now, as Monica pointed out, is that John O'Keefe never entered that house. That's really beyond dispute with respect to the witnesses we've heard now. We know the defendant's argument that he did, but the fact is she never said to anyone that morning that John had been inside the house. So at least one thing they've done is sort of eliminate, at least as they would see it, the chance that he was in the house and met his death somewhere inside that house. What they've done is they've also shown us that he died in the snow, that the emergency responders tried to save him. But the problem is the defendant has done a better job introducing and with some significant reaction, the fact that there's reasonable doubt here, that the police investigation was messed up, that it wasn't followed by good police work. And the fact is they've created doubt during the government's case already, and that's problematic from the prosecution standpoint.
How far along do you think we are in the prosecution's presentation?
It's hard to say because of the pace at which it's going. My guess is that there are at least 2 more full weeks of presentation, because we need the forensics, we need the toxicology reports, we're going to need the recreations of the actual event in question, and we're also going to need someone to tell us about the technology with whether these phones were working correctly, whether the zones were, because we're going to have a big opportunity tomorrow for cross-examination on the text or the Google search she made about how long does it take to die in the snow.
So again, Jennifer McCabe was the last on the stand, still with the prosecution. We haven't gotten to cross-examination yet. She should be back first thing on the stand tomorrow. And yes, to just in case, if you don't remember, she is the one who said, I Googled how long does it take to die in the snow, hypothermia, on Karen's ask. Karen asked
Yes.
her. So the timestamp is what you're saying.
The
might be
timestamp is going to be critical, and there's going to be conflicting evidence like there is with everything else in this case.
Okay, so this guy is saying probably 2 weeks left. You know, we're at 3 weeks at this point, and I have no idea what the Commonwealth is basically trying to say. They got in a fight, and, you know, she was a jealous girlfriend. Like, I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not saying that she's innocent. I'm not saying she's guilty. I'm just saying if I was on the jury at this point, I would need way more. The jury is probably going to need to be reminded who Karen Read is tomorrow and that she's someone who was charged, right? Because there's just so many people like thrown around in this mix. Regardless of who did it, the disgraceful job that the police conducted in gathering evidence is only really going to hurt John and finding justice for him. 100%. It's so sad. And it's just, there's no excuse for it.
As to what time that search was conducted. The defense wants to argue, and they seem to have some support for it, that search was at 2:30 in the morning, well before anyone discovered his body outside 34 Fairview in the snow. The prosecution says, no, that was closer to 6 a.m. when they finally got there and discovered John's body, and it was done at the defendant's request. That's an open issue, and that technology experts will help to determine whether that's true. But it appears, like everything else in this case, there are two sides on that issue and two series of conflicting evidence that the jury will have to sort out.
Yeah, there have been very few, if I can think, perhaps John's brother and his sister-in-law, that didn't have either cross-examination or very aggressive cross-examinations. Is that typical when it's the prosecution's turn, you know, starting to put their witnesses on the stand?
You wouldn't cross-examine the family members. They don't add much here. Their background, really, you're going to.
How did she not know that? Sorry, not to sound rude to her or anything, but like, why would the brother be cross-examined? Anyways, just reading your guys' comments. And I agree, E. Caroline. I need to know more details, holes in the knowledge of the case, but so far, based on what I do know, still thinking snowplow or truck hit him while he was drunk in the blizzard. And I had a question too, like, did he ever like smoke cigarettes? Like, was he outside smoking a cigarette? Was he outside maybe hoping to pick up one of Karen's phone calls, but he didn't want to pick it up around anyone in the house, so he went outside and then like slipped, or maybe he dropped his phone and was trying to get the phone and then a snowplow came. Like, I think that there's so many different scenarios than just what the theory of the Commonwealth is saying and the theory that the defense is saying. I am very puzzled at the swabs that were done on the marks on his arms and that it came back as pig DNA. So remember, everyone was saying, oh, he was attacked by the dog Chloe. You know, that's going to come back to have dog DNA on him. Well, it came back as pig. Is that right, guys? Because that was just so confusing to me. Now, to me, it's like either the lab screwed up that tested it, or there's another theory, which I thought was pretty good, because I had a dog that used to chew pig ears. I don't know if you guys ever did. Yes, pig DNA. No, not pig as in cop. I I know everyone's kind of been making that joke too. I'm trying to scroll up and see what Dustin said. Unfortunately for John, everyone who was shit-faced, he got run over by the plow or random person, and now the repercussions are falling on Karen or the cops in the house. Yes. And like Christina said, like, even if they came forward and said it was an accident, you're still getting sued. Like, there's instances, and I know personally, like, if a death takes place and it was an accident, like, you can still hold somebody accountable even if charges aren't filed. So, you know, they could have been worried about, you know, like, great, now I'm going to get sued. If I admit that I was drunk when I accidentally hit him, or I, you know, the snowplow guy, or, you know, whatever, they're not going to come forward and just say like, well, they won't arrest me because it was an accident. It's like your life still kind of falls apart, even if you kill somebody on an accident. What pig? I haven't heard that. Yes. That it came back as pig DNA. So Unsafe Bot says they never swabbed the actual wound. So what did they swab for the pig DNA to come back? Because there definitely was talk of pig DNA that was on John that came back. Now, people, I don't know if you guys who have dogs ever see the pig ears at the grocery store. You can buy pig ears that are like smoked and dried out. It's like giving your dog a bone. We had a Maltese growing up that loved them. Like, he literally, you would have to like take it away from him when he was sleeping because he just loved them so much. They were his favorite. His clothing. Okay, thank you. Right, they didn't do anything right. And for a cop, like, this isn't just somebody, you know, it was like they just didn't even care. So people have theorized that, okay, fine, no dog DNA, that's fine. But what if the dog chewed pig ears? Is that why that's on there? Thought that was a good theory. Because, I mean, how else do you explain the pig DNA? Other people have claimed that somebody at the bar was eating, what are they called? Those, what's it called? The potato skins that have like the cheese and the bacon on it. Somebody got those at the bar and was snacking on them, and then they got in a fight and it rubbed off on to John. No, not ribs. It's like a potato that you cut in half and you melt cheese on it. No, not loaded potato. Potato skins, yes. So it's like just a little snack that a lot of bars have, and it has, so they're saying that Colin Sr. got potato skins at the bar. So, you know, again, who's the one who got in a fight with John? Colin or Brian Higgins? Like, who is it? That's the other thing, is like, some people have said like, oh, the defense is just throwing spaghetti and seeing whatever sticks. I can see that, but also at the same time, like, there's just way too much doubt, and there's way too many other scenarios that I could see taking place besides Karen getting mad and jealous and putting it in reverse and hitting him in front of a whole house of cops where people are still being dropped off at the party. So why, you know, it's just, to me, it's just too much doubt. Even if she was, you know, mad at him or whatever, because we do know that she left those voicemails. But yeah, anyways, I just think there's a lot of doubt in my mind with this case.
Going to have to be very careful when the children testify, and we do have those people scheduled as well, and the court has taken pains to try and make sure that their privacy is respected, and the cross-examination will have to be very, very carefully done. But yes, the family.
Yes, Katie May, there was talk of, and it was proven through text messages, I believe, that Karen was speaking to Brian Higgins in a flirtatious way. Nothing physical happened between them, but they did hang out in private, allegedly. And her lawyers have come out saying, like, yes, that took place, but it never went anywhere. So when we're talking about, oh, Karen, John was going to break up with Karen and Karen didn't want to be alone, blah, blah, blah. She's a beautiful woman. Like, she obviously had other options, I think. So I just don't see her killing John because he wanted to break up with her. And I've seen no evidence that shows that John wanted to break up with her. Just because they bickered or whatever. Even his brother testified, like, yeah, they bickered like any normal relationship did. So yeah, Brian Higgins is the ATF agent who was there. And he went home early to do work, like paperwork for work, which I think is weird, around midnight, or something like that. So yep, he was there. And then the next morning when all the chaos was going on, I believe he came back too and was one of the people kind of first on scene and stuff. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe he came back in the morning after he was called by the Alberts about what was taking place. He's also the one that was butt dialed during sex. So the Alberts apparently allegedly are being intimate, and he accidentally butt dials Brian Higgins. So it's all very weird, but I just don't think that Karen is the type. Yeah, exactly. She could have had anyone she wanted. That's how I feel. 1:30 in the morning, he went to the police station to do work. OCD Shaggy. It's all very weird. And honestly, for those who have a smartphone, I mean, do you guys butt dial people? Because for me, like, I need a face recognition or a passcode put in before I'm even able to open my phone, let alone get into the area where I can call people. Okay, thank you. That's what they claim. So he left the party early to go do work at the police station. Brian Higgins, the guy who Karen was kind of talking to, flirty in a flirtatious way, but it never went anywhere.
Family members, you're not necessarily going to hurt.
No, but I mean, like, is it normal? Is it typical that every witness that the prosecution puts on can get this much pushback from the defense? What I mean is there haven't been very many witnesses prosecution has put on that the defense just sort of went, no questions.
No, the fact is, when we call witnesses as trial attorneys, what we should be trying to do is say, what can I get from them? And do I lose more on cross-examination than I'm likely to receive on the direct examination? And if the answer is yes, you don't call them unless it's absolutely critical information that that witness has and only that witness has, and then I have to put them on direct exam. But the fact is, a lot of these witnesses, the Commonwealth has lost more than they've gained from that testimony. You could have eliminated a lot of these witnesses and be in, I think, a stronger position than they are right now.
Totally answered my question, Michael.
I try.
You do every time. I just have to ask the better questions. Michael, thank you so much. When we come back, we're going to talk to courtroom strategy. We're going to talk about that with local attorney Catherine Loftus, and we'll get her take on Jennifer McCabe's testimony so far as well. Stay tuned.
Grilling and playing.
So take this for what you want. I found Jen McCabe to be reliable. I really did. I found her to be normal. I found her she didn't look nervous to me. She presented well.
That is attorney Catherine Loftus, also known on TikTok for Note My Objection, which is what you are seeing right there. You can also see her every week here on Canton Confidential because she joins us right now in studio. I want to follow up to your TikTok post. You thought Jennifer McCabe was very credible. Talk to me more about that and how it relates to the other witnesses who were in the house at that time that we've heard from so far.
I thought really, JC, that both Jen and Matt, they presented differently than some of the other Alberts and people who have testified previously. I got the general feeling when the prior civilian witnesses that everybody was on guard, everybody was on the defensive. And while their both Jen and Matt's testimony, it wasn't perfect. There were certainly issues with it. There were holes with it. But I do think that they were humanized a little bit more. I think that the connections to John that they talked about made them a little bit more relatable. And the way that they answered questions didn't appear evasive to me. If they didn't know, just said they didn't know. And they appeared fairly credible to me. It wasn't that TikTok was not the most popular with everyone, because I think there's been a lot of lead up to these witnesses testifying, and they've been painted in a certain light. And I'm not sure that it quite came off that way. I thought they did pretty well overall.
Well, sometimes imperfect is perfect,
right?
In this case, because that has been some of the civilian criticism is about how you can be so specific about a time you left, but forget some really big general things that are asked of some of these witnesses.
And I think one of the things that people often forget is that there's a lot of pressure on being on a witness stand anyway, never mind in a case of this magnitude, and particularly when most of these civilians have been involved in a very different way pre-trial. So I think there's a lot of stress that comes with it. I actually think that the less precision is better. If you say, oh, I came home at 12:10 and then I checked my bedroom at 12:13 versus it was sometime after 12 o'clock. This is what I think. But I do think there are some things that you remember when she testified that she got a call at 4:53. I'm sure that memory is seared into her head. And I'm sure she went back at some point and looked at what the call was. So you want a little bit of a balance between precision, but not in every facet.
We have about a minute left. We talked before about how the prosecution's laying out its case, and you had said a lot of times it's a buildup so that the last witness is the boom and you leave on this high note. Do you see that happening and the storytelling reaching that arc that you talked about?
I hope I'm seeing it. I think we did see a little bit with Jen and Matt. There is something that I think if they had maybe put Matt and Jen at the very beginning, it would have helped kind of get the jury to understand a little bit more of the scene. It was a little bit disjointed as I'm looking at it as we go day by day. But I do think that the Commonwealth's strength, their case, is likely to be coming. We're going to hear from likely Kerry Roberts. The jury's going to hear from the niece and nephew. That is not going to be broadcast. And then we're going to get into the physical evidence, the data, the experts, the car, the Celebrite software for the cell phone. So I think the Commonwealth thinks that's the strength of their case. Hopefully that translates to us, the viewers, and the jury.
I have 10 seconds left on this. Would you have put as many witnesses in these 3 weeks on just the first responders and the people in the house that day?
I wouldn't. I think there's a lot of unnecessary. I mean, I think you could have called a couple of the EMTs, a couple of the police officers to lay the scene. I understand that they were trying to be, show that there was some consistency, but too much duplicativeness it bores the jury. So I think they could have done it in a shorter period.
And you can lose the jury, and the jury is what you need.
That's right.
Catherine Loftus, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
She's back every week. Still ahead, remembering the man at the center of this trial, John O'Keefe. Next, we recap some of what was been said about him during testimony.
That's just 30 incredibly select.com.
Cancel any
extra connection.
We want to bring this back to what this trial is really about. Officer John O'Keefe, who tragically lost his life. His brother Paul and sister-in-law Erin were the first witnesses called to testify. They gave us a glimpse into John's life, how he stepped up to raise his niece and nephew. He became their guardian after his sister and her husband died years earlier.
Paul and Johnny went out to lunch one day, and we had kind of assumed because Johnny was out on, the streets doing his job like that Paul and I would take the kids, and Johnny said he was going to do it.
We didn't have a, large enough house to take on 2 other children. So my brother stepped in, moved into the house and
The other thing that I did kind of want to emphasize too is I really feel like the Commonwealth has prepped his witnesses like way too obvious. Like, I just think that they were just very rehearsed in a lot of things. He was leading them down avenues. You could tell, like, with his questioning, like they might have like forgot what they were prepped to say. And then he would say, you know, what if anything did you blah blah blah. And then they were like, oh, and then we, and it was just like so fake sounding. Like it didn't sound, it was just too rehearsed. This is Jen McCabe, for those who don't know. We're going to play a little bit of what she has to say on the stand last week. Remember, tomorrow she's being cross-examined by the defense team, so that's going to be super interesting. Want to play a little bit of her stuff to get a feel for her, for those who didn't see her on the stand, and I want your guys' input. And then we'll skip to the end of this segment because I didn't watch it all, and we'll listen to what the talking heads had to say about last week. And thank you, Melissa Jade, and everyone coming over here from her chat. I really appreciate you guys being here. Yes, he was leading AF. Yep. What if anything? Everyone knew to say 12-10. Yes, regarding Colin. And like you could even argue and say like everyone knew to say Karen was screaming, I hit him, I hit him. Now remember, none of the first reports written on the incident had that in it. So the police officers are not putting in there, Karen was screaming, I hit him, I hit him. That wasn't until later. So why, if she was saying that, why wouldn't that have been written down and emphasized from the very beginning? Lally screwed Jen when he played the video of Karen, Jen, and Carrie arriving at Jen's. They didn't stop and look at the taillight like Jen said they did. Interesting. I didn't even catch up on that. There's a lot of things that kind of have taken place where it's like, wait a minute, what? That's not what was stated here, or that's not what's being portrayed here. Oh, and then also you just reminded me, Jen said, remember early on when the officer who was at the scene and it showed his body camera or his dash cam, I'm sorry, and it showed somebody walking into the house and he was being questioned, like, why did you let witnesses, you know, congregate inside the house where they could align their stories and make sure everything was matching? You know, you should have kept them separate. And then Jen McCabe on her testimony said that an officer asked her to go inside. So it's like she kind of like covered for the fact that at first it was being questioned, like, why are these people all getting together inside the house? They could be corroborating a story or concocting, you know, making sure their stories line up. And then when Jen here gets on the stand, she claims that an officer told her to go into the house. So it's just very convenient, some of the things that are being said by some people testifying.
She is on the stand. Jen McCabe. She was called by Karen Read in the morning. Karen Read went to her house. She and Carrie Roberts were in the car with Karen Read as she ran out and then ran to John O'Keefe. And she also talks about what Karen Read was doing and saying when they found his body at 34 Fairview. Take a listen to her key testimony today.
Karen, we saw you outside of my sister's.
And what was her response to that?
She told me that she didn't remember going there. And then she started yelling, Jen, Jen. And then she was saying, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And then she proceeded to say that she had a cracked taillight. In the car was Carrie Roberts. And so she kind of rolled down the window and was like, Karen, what are you doing? And then the plow was behind her. So Carrie pulled up and I believe I told Karen that I was going to drive her car because I didn't want her driving because she was hysterical. So we got in her car and then Carrie Roberts called Karen. And then Karen was screaming and, you know, saying that she had cracked her taillight. We need to go to Fairview. could I have hit him? Did I hit him? And then she would just scream our names. Kerry was telling her to shut up. We drive past the flagpole area, and all of a sudden, Karen starts screaming, there he is, and she's banging to get out.
And banging on the door in the back seat.
Yes.
And at the time that she's saying this, were you able to see anything outside of the vehicle?
I saw nothing. Miss Roberts looked at me and said something like, she's crazy or she's bat crazy, something like that.
And when the defendant gets out of the vehicle, where is it that she goes?
She just runs.
And runs with?
Straight to John. She straddles John and she lifts up his shirt, and then she lifted up her shirt and went to lay on him. And Miss Roberts went over and she was removing the snow from his face.
More testimony. Another witness, Vinny, saying they heard, I hit him, I hit him.
Yeah, so, you know, all these testimonies saying I hit him, but yet the officer doesn't write any of that down in his report. So Linda says, I can't wait for tomorrow's cross with Jen McCabe. The defense had 3 days to prepare, and it should be very interesting. I agree. We'll have to do a live stream, of course, after next week, because I'm going out of town. That's why this was kind of like a random Monday night live. So I appreciate you guys being here, even though it's not my normal schedule. And I agree, Natasha, both sides are just so questionable to me. And I'm not really buying either theory, really. Like, I think it could be so many different scenarios, but again, like, who are they claiming he got in a fight with, Colin or Higgins? I feel like either one could be a plausible scenario that took place. And even like we stated earlier, like Caroline said, and I've been saying, you know, maybe it was the plow, or because everyone's been saying, why would they, you know, why would they just come up with an idea to frame Karen? I'm almost thinking, I think I've stated this before, that he did get in a fight with somebody inside. They put him outside, hoping that it would look like the plow hit him and he was drunk, or a car hit him and he was drunk. And then as soon as Karen's kind of in shock and questioning, like, she was freaking out. And when she starts saying, if she did say, I hit him, then it was like, oh, so this is what our theories, or this is what our cover-up's going to be. She wants to take the fall and blame for this. Let's just go with that. So instead of, you know, just saying like, wow, you know, that's terrible. He must have gotten hit by the plow or something happened. As soon as she starts saying things out of shock, they might have just said like, yes, let's just go with that. Again, it's just, there's so many different things in my mind that I think could have taken place. She may have questioned in shock and asking if she hit him as a question. Yeah. And apparently that's what one of them testified as. Some of them have said that she said, I hit him. And then one person said that she was like, could I have hit him? So it's just all over the place. Well, I know that, but wouldn't that be an important thing to note? If somebody's saying, I hit him, could I have hit him? Especially the girlfriend of the victim, you would think that the officer would have wrote that down. Yeah, an important thing would have been Karen screaming, I hit him. All right. Didn't it all come from that Steve guy that said he was friends with Brian Alberts and he knew Karen was innocent? I'm not sure on that. Maybe someone in chat knows. Hi, Jody is cool, and everyone else who is here. Roro, good to see you. All right, so now, again, I don't want to play this whole thing, but let's get to what the talking heads have to say, because they got good insight.
So this one is from myself to John, and it says here at 12:27. So at that point, I see a car out front, and I text him here.
He testified to as far as looking out the front storm door, seeing the car, and then he sent a text. That was a text.
Correct.
And that's the other thing is a couple people have said like, yes, I saw her black Lexus. I saw the dome light on and she was, behind the wheel. Now Jen is saying she saw the car pull up and she said here, and you can see it on the screen with a question mark. So just brings me back to my whole question of like, why, when people were expecting them to arrive, no matter how mad she is, would Karen think I'm going to hit him and then pull away and get away with this? Oh, sorry, Planet. She said, assume most of what I write is sarcastic. But you know what I mean? Like people are texting him knowing that they're showing up. Why would she think that she could get away with hitting him and killing him and then leaving the scene? It's just the Commonwealth theory of it is just like not making sense to me. And so Jen McCabe sees them pull up. She says here, but she doesn't say that she saw Karen hit him.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down to that. And ma'am, similar, if you could just, who sent it? What's the content and what is that time?
I sent to John, pull behind me at 12:31.
And what were you referring to when you said pull behind?
So at this point, the car had moved from the prior spot where I originally saw it. So I thought, what is he doing? Why don't they just pull behind me in the driveway?
And, you just scroll down. And again, with this bubble, if you could read out.
From me to John saying hello, and it was at 12:40.
And at this point in time, as far as, let me ask it this way. When you're sending these text messages over these periodic time periods, what, if anything, are you doing sort of in between?
So I originally went to the front door, saw the car, texted them, texted John. Then I went back, kind of sat at the table, just either threw my phone probably in my back pocket. And then a couple minutes later, I got up again and saw that the car had moved. So I had sent the pull behind me. And then a few minutes later, I went back to the window.
Let's bring in our experts, our insiders. Joining me tonight, Karen Read supporter and expert Nick Rocco, criminal defense attorney Joseph Krowski Jr., who at one time represented Colin Albert, and the YouTuber behind Yellow Cottage Tales, Kevin Lenahan, is with us. Great to see everyone. Okay, I have a couple questions, important ones, okay? All these times are being thrown out. We've heard from all these witnesses. I'm still trying to figure out one question for both sides here, and I'll begin, Kevin, with you. When exactly was John O'Keefe run over by Karen Read?
Well, we haven't got to that in the case yet, but we know from what was revealed in previous documents that it was at 12:32 that John's phone moved for the last time. So right before that, maybe a minute before that, is when Jen sent him a text to pull up behind us. So it's really tragic to think about what was going on at that time. We'll never know exactly. They're just looking out the window, taking glances out. So trying to piece all that together later is difficult, but we do have that data, and hopefully we'll get more data from Karen's phone revealed to us.
So from the phones, Joseph Krowski Jr., how important do you think it is for prosecutors here to nail down the time that they believe the murder took place, with all these people dropping people off, picking people up, and looking out the windows?
So today had to be a sobering day for the defense, right? I think there's a little gamesmanship by Attorney Jackson. You always want to leave, especially before a long weekend, on a high note. There's always a risk when you hyperbolize in your opening statement. And, David Yannetti promised that Karen Read was framed. And one of the architects of that conspiracy to frame was Jen McCabe. The jury got to meet Jen McCabe today, and the juxtaposition between Jen McCabe and Karen Read can't be any more different. Jen McCabe is a mom. She's a wife. She's a coach. She befriended John O'Keefe. She loved John O'Keefe as a friend. She was a surrogate to John O'Keefe's niece. He welcomed in Karen Read, and they had some commonality over a medical condition. She took the witness stand today, and I was there, and the camera doesn't do it justice. And she was clear. She was concise. She was believable. What she said was plausible. What she said was backed up by those texts. Now consider the juxtaposition with Karen, who was described as irrational, perhaps intoxicated, argumentative, jealous. We've now first heard about the woman Ashley that John had dated before, which might explain why John O'Keefe and Karen never go into that party. So this was a really difficult day for the defense. And I have to, it's not funny, so I don't laugh, but with each passing day, it's more and more ludicrous. We were promised the gaudy crime syndicate, and you see the McCabe family walking across that crosswalk. So this was a really, really difficult day for the defense.
Nick Rocco, I can let you can respond to all of that, but I also want you to tell me, when did John O'Keefe go in the house?
Well, John O'Keefe went in the house the minute Karen got there. He got out of the car. Jen's SUV was parked, the last car. She has a huge SUV. So the reason why Nagel and the rest of them wouldn't see John O'Keefe going in the house is because the minute he opened the door, he was being blocked by that SUV. And possibly Julie Nagel might be stating that she didn't see Karen Read's vehicle outside, because that means that would have been the same exact time John was coming inside the house. But as far as what Kevin said, when John's phone stopped moving around 12:32, Jen McCabe sent another text around 12:40, and she stated that she was looking outside the door at that point. So if she was looking outside the door at that point and John's phone wasn't moving, let's say Karen hit him at 12:32 when the phone stopped moving, that means he was lying dead on the lawn at that point, and Jen didn't see him. Nobody saw John O'Keefe on the lawn. Nobody saw a taillight or a shoe or a hat, because John was not on the lawn. I mean, that text message right there at 12:42, where are you? Well, he's not on the lawn, is he?
Let me ask you, Kevin, about another big part. I want to get to one more issue.
Comment?
Go ahead.
I think someone saw, unfortunately and tragically, John O'Keefe on the lawn, and that was made abundantly clear today, and that was, tragically, Karen Read.
Kevin, let me ask you about the Google search. How long to die in the cold?
The 227 search is about as real as Slender Man. I guess if enough people believe in it, maybe it starts to dawn a little bit of reality. The paramedic on the ambulance heard Karen asking for the exact same kind of thing that she asked Jen to search for. That should put it to rest, but if it doesn't, you have the Ian Whiffen, the creator of the software, the executive forensic data expert from the Celebrate, the software that was used to find that search. He's going to testify for the prosecution.
And this is where I go back to Kevin Kobach, CBI agent Kevin Kobach from the Watts case, talking about phone data. And he says, people lie, phones don't. So here, this guy is saying like, oh, that search, Karen, a paramedic heard Karen ask that exact same question. Well, that's if we believe that paramedic. Again, I can't say that this paramedic's a liar and he's not a good person. He or she's not a good person. I can't remember which one said it. But the phone data, the Celebrate poll, I go back to it because that's just phone data. There's nothing that can be really lied upon, in my opinion, because it was just forensically pulled from Celebrate, stated that it was deleted at 2:27. So I know that they're going to have the Celebrate guy testify for the prosecution, but I have a hard time believing this whole like, oh, it was a tab that was open that she reopened at 6:20 something in the morning and Karen asked her to search it again. I'm not really buying that. Like it's very hard. And again, that was the only person who said that they heard Karen ask that same question. It was only one paramedic that heard that. which one. I can't remember. I want to say it was a guy. I can't remember, OCD. I'm really sorry, but I do remember one of them did say that he heard Karen ask how long, and a hyperthermia question, very similar to the Google search. We've already established as well that the paramedics know the cops. They go to the same gym, etc. They all work the same scenes at times, So you have to keep that in mind too. Not saying that he's a liar, but I just have a hard time believing that the Celebrate report is lies or showing up something that's not accurate.
He's already explained it. Jessica Hyde, an elite forensic data person, independent, is going to testify for the prosecution. All the defense has is just, I mean, this is a dangerous thing we're getting here where data streams they're surrounding us, and they're getting so sophisticated that even the people that create them don't always predict what they're going to do. And all it takes is a defense to find some random thing, and people are going to seize on it when you really need to look at the totality of the data.
Nick, is this the most important piece of evidence from your perspective? This search that the defense is alleging is at 2:27 in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, the Google search at 2:27 is going to be crucial. Now, I don't claim, nor am I, a digital forensic expert, but what I can say is that digital forensic data is used every single day in prosecutors' cases, and it's happening daily in Massachusetts currently, right now, in some pretty high-profile cases. And when such incriminating evidence is used against them, the only option that they have to do is basically to try to confuse the jury with technical gibberish. And that's exactly what they're doing with the location of John's data, putting him inside the house, right? So first they try to hide the Google search. Now they have to discredit it with techno babble. And people I don't think are going to buy into all these fancy words that the experts are going to use. And the fact of the matter is, we all know that phone records record everything. Digital evidence stands on its own. So in every other case, in every other case.
That guy interrupting him. What about the paramedic? What about the paramedic? Again, people lie, phones don't. I just keep going back to that because, again, we don't know what is motivating the paramedic to say that. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm just saying, the Celebrate report kind of speaks for itself.
Digital forensic data is okay, but all of a sudden in this case, it's not. And the only reason why it's being challenged is because it's devastating to the Commonwealth, and when it's proven and authenticated, it's game over. We're done here with that. I mean, 2:27 happened.
Nick, is the paramedic just a coincidence?
Listen, Richard Green, the FBI expert from Quantico, and Alan Jackson are not going to come in and try to give you this basically buffoon explanation to what happened. Forensic data doesn't lie. The Google search was deleted. Kevin, me and you could go back on this. We're never going to.
This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do.
It's just a coincidence.
It's coming up. It's coming up. Great points by everybody. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other McCabe, Jennifer's husband, Matthew McCabe. What did he say? That was going on, the text messages that were sent back and forth. Really interesting. Is it evidence of a conspiracy? Take a listen.
On February 1st of 2022 at 12:51 and 49 seconds, you texted the group chat to say, ask Chris to ask some questions, correct?
Yep, I'm reading it right now. Yes, that's correct.
And who was the Chris you were referring to?
That would be Chris Albert.
Brian's brother, correct?
That is correct.
And then you texted your wife, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert, quote, tell them the guy never went in the house, correct?
Yeah, that's part of the same text. Yes.
Mr. McCabe, who was the guy that you were referring to? Does he have a name?
That would be John O'Keefe.
when you told the group to tell them the guy never went in the house, that was you talking about how you should all get your stories straight, correct?
That's how I take it. How is chat taking that? For him to send out a text message to a group of people who, were at the house, etc., tell him the guy never made it in the house. And what do you know? Every single one of them testified, never was inside, never saw John in the house, except for Allie, remember? And she slips up and says, well, Colin's been getting harassed, but he was never there when John was there.
No.
You would agree with me that your stories are all straight in terms of the guy never went in the house, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
John never went in the house. It's not a story, it's a fact.
Well, when you said, tell them the guy never went in the house, Brian Albert was on that exchange still, was he not? He was still part of the group text?
Yes, Brian is on the exchange.
And Brian Albert was the one to respond, wasn't he?
Let me switch pages here. 1251.
He responded, did he not?
Yes, he did.
And then at that point, you knew Brian Albert was the oldest brother of the Albert family, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The oldest sibling in that family, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in his response to your instructions that his younger brother, Chris, should say that John O'Keefe never went in the house, or the guy never went in the house, you would agree with me that he responded with one word, correct?
Yes, he did.
And in response to you saying the guy never went in the house, Brian Albert's response was, exactly, correct?
Yes, that's his response.
I remember when his daughter, Ellie, goes up on the stand, like I said, not only does she say, oh, Colin was never there when John was at the house, but then she breaks down and crying. That's why we were all kind of saying, like, I don't know, it seemed a little over dramatic. Then she asked the judge for a minute so she could gather herself. People were saying, like, no, she's just upset because they've been harassed. Or is she upset because everyone on the stand, including her father here, are doubling down, like, oh, those texts weren't instructing the group to say that. It's just the facts. He was never at the house. Then she slips up and says, Colin was never there when John was at the house. So it's just all, for me, I'm starting to see the defense is painting this picture of doubt, a lot of reasonable doubt for me if I was on the jury.
We're done here.
All right, Joseph Krowski, is that a problem for prosecutors?
No, and that was rehabilitated by ABA Lally. There was an explanation in context after this had happened. Certainly the death of a police officer would generate a lot of publicity, and news cameras were around, and one of the people that they were trying to get comment from was Chris Albert, who hadn't even been at the house. And I think there was a suggestion, just say the truth. He never went in the house. And that's where we're at with the evidence right now. That's where we're at with all of the witnesses. In fact, he never went at the house. And I wish the body language expert was on tonight, because I've seen a lot of witnesses, and Matt McCabe was quick. He was consistent. And, he was credible.
Nick, do you think this is evidence of this alleged conspiracy?
I do. I believe Matt McCabe, before this text message was sent, he was driving up and down the street. He's reporting everything back to Brian Albert as if, if it had nothing to do with these people, then why were they so concerned with the fact that cops were at the neighbor's house? And then to send a text message and use the word "the guy" 2 days after John O'Keefe was murdered, kind of like his wife when she called 911 and she said there's a man on the lawn. They are distancing themselves from John O'Keefe at this moment. They're not even using his name. And he's telling Brian Albert to make sure Your brother tells them that the guy wasn't in the house. But the interesting thing about Chris Albert not being at the house is in his police report, it states that Julie and Chris both followed Brian Albert back to his house. Now, all of a sudden, he wasn't there. So the fact that Channel 4 wants to talk to somebody who wasn't even at the house, what type of information would they get from him unless it was handed over information?
Kevin?
It takes a complete reimagining, a delusional reimagining of these completely normal texts to imagine these as some sign of a conspiracy. It's a couple of days after the crime. Chris was not at the house, and they're in a group text, and a reporter is talking to Chris. He's like, what do I say? And Matt, who was in the house, says John never came in. And Brian, who was in the house, says exactly. That's all completely normal. And it bothers me that people are reimagining this. It's really, our founding fathers had the wisdom to entrust our justice with the jury of our people.
Oh dear. Now he's pulling in the founding fathers with all this. Basically, though, it is going to come down to how is the jury going to interpret this? Are they going to see it as, well, no, the press was asking questions, so he's just simply saying tell them the guy was never in the house. The response, though, exactly to me is strange, because that's almost like saying, like, I know what you're saying, or I'm picking up what you're putting down. Wink, wink, exactly.
Peers, but I'm starting to worry about our peers. I hope, when I see some of the stuff that's going on with this mob, and that to believe some of these crazy theories, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, I want to put a picture up on the screen. Julie Nagel, important witness in all this. She is the one who said she saw that black blob 5 to 6 feet on the yard, which would be Officer John O'Keefe. And she said she blurted it out to everyone in the car on the ride home. Well, the man driving that car was Matthew McCabe. Here's what he had to say about that.
As you backed out of the driveway, the rear end of your car would have been facing towards Cedar Crest.
Correct.
And then you would straighten out, and now you've got a straight shot up toward Chapman Street, correct?
Yes.
And it would also mean that you drove the length of the Albert's property, correct?
Yes.
While you did that, sir, Julie Nagel never said, what was that, did she?
I did not hear Julie say that.
She never said she had seen a black object, correct?
I did not hear her say that.
And you never stopped the car because you never heard Julie Nagel say anything about anybody being in trouble, correct?
I did not hear her say it.
All right, Joseph, is Julie Nagel a problem for prosecutors here? Because this is a second time where there seems to be some witness that's saying something completely different than what she testified to.
No, just because he didn't hear it doesn't mean she didn't say it. They're leaving in a snowstorm, he's driving, and that bolsters his credibility. Would have been easy for him to say if he wasn't a truth-telling person. I'm sure I heard that. He answered truthfully, didn't hear it. But again, and he definitely tried to insinuate that it hadn't been said. It just means he didn't hear it. Important point about that, though. It was difficult to see at that time when they had left. The jury was able to see the conditions when Karen Read allegedly for the first time saw John O'Keefe. It was almost whiteout conditions and it was dark, and it would be almost impossible to see John O'Keefe. Yet Karen Read said, there he is, there he is, there he is. Started slapping on the windows. They stopped the car and she ran out to John O'Keefe. The implication being that she had already been to the house and knew where he was. So, again, you cherry picked a little part of it, but in context, I think that's actually helpful to the prosecution.
Hey, Nick, what did you think of that testimony that she's the only one in that car who was able to see John O'Keefe that morning?
Well, it's interesting how it's okay that she was able to see John O'Keefe, but when Karen Read saw John O'Keefe, it's a big problem. But one problem about everybody's story is that there was a dusting of snow on the lawn. So if John O'Keefe was hit, when they're saying John was hit by Karen's car, there would have been a dusting of snow. So most likely from his body temperature and his body heat, it would have melted that dusting of snow. But when they found John O'Keefe's body, there was at least 2 inches of snow underneath his body. And the biggest point is, where is the blood? They found 6 drops of blood outside. This guy lost 3 liters
I
of
saw
blood.
the blood was in the it was in the solo cups. In the solo cups.
He lost half of his blood in his body, and it's nowhere to be found because it was on the basement floor.
We're out of time for tonight and this week, but big
Where is the blood? Everyone's been asking that. Again, I'm just going to close things out with this up on the screen. The Celebrate report. I mean, again, I'm not an expert in tech, but I do know that in other cases, we've never heard in any other case that is using Celebrate and pulled up data, especially stuff that says deleted, where they've come out saying like, well, no, they had that tab open and then they reopened it, blah, 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 like they're trying to say here. So it'll be interesting to hear the Celebrate expert, try and explain it all. Maybe I'll feel different then. Again, I'm trying to have an open mind, just like the jury. I'm trying to take it all in as they're taking it in. But to me, right now, there's way too much reasonable doubt at this point in my mind. So if you guys feel like there's way too much reasonable doubt, press 1. If you think it's open and shut and Karen's guilty, press 2. And don't be afraid to share your opinion. I'm open to everybody's opinion. Again, I'm still undecided, like the jury I'm sure is, and confused like the jury is. But that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you for joining me on a random Monday night. Again, it was done this way because I'm leaving this week to go out of town, so I won't be live on my regular times. Tomorrow night, I'm going to try to go live again. Not sure on what, but join me tomorrow night around 9 and we can discuss true crime. I'm seeing a lot of ones already in chat. Reasonable doubt. If you were on the jury right now, you feel like there's way too much reasonable doubt. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you to my moderators. Thank you to everyone who joined. Again, please hit that like button and we will talk tomorrow night, hopefully. So see you guys then. Goodbye.